What's up, guys? Long time no see. We're back with a massive deadline grading here. I've got some criteria up. We're going to go based off team fit, asset management, and comparing it to the trade market. It was a crazy, crazy deadline. How'd you feel about it overall?
Yeah, this is probably the most insane deadline we've had in recent memory that doesn't involve like an actual blockbuster trade. It was just like tons of people just like throwing basically just shit at the wall around and just seeing what sticks. So
There's the
very
good, the
fun.
bad, and the ugly. We've got a lot to go over. We're gonna get right into it. We're gonna start a little bit earlier on. We've got the Kiefer Sherwood deal. San Jose got Kiefer Sherwood in exchange for Vancouver's Cole Clayton, or in exchange for Cole Clayton, 2026 second and seventh round pick in 2027. Personally, I think this is an interesting deal. Sherwood led the league in hits last season. He came off to a great start. He was like leading the league in goals a month in or something crazy, but he did slow down, and San Jose waited until then to grab him. I've got the grade for that. First, I'm gonna go B minus for San Jose. I like how their forward core looks with him, but I think they paid quite a price for that, mostly because, given the added context of the contract he signed after, they've got him for another 5 years, and I don't really think Kiefer Sherwood is a player at 30 years old who's going to age super well with his very physical, fast-paced style. I don't think players like that are built for like long mid-30s late contracts. Um, but maybe they can flip him at some point. But I don't think it's super likely with that contract. Vancouver though gets a B. They move off of Sherwood, probably their most desired asset post Quinn Hughes. They could have got maybe a little bit more for him, like in overall quality. Maybe you get a late first or like a first instead of those 2 seconds, but we're really nitpicking there. I'll give him a B. How did you feel about this one, Cole?
Yeah, and then really quick before I start, you will notice my reasons are blank. We did have some copying issues, so I just have my letter grade, and then everything else it's all in my mind. Um,
He's just like that.
Post editing picture all in his mind right there.
Yep.
But anyways, I have B plus around the board. Um, I do think this Kiefer Sherwood trade kind of screams we need a scorer and a hitter right now, but the Sharks are like just starting off. They're gonna have like a decade like starting next year of like contention. Sherwood will obviously be in his 40s by the end of that window, so um, I do like it though. I do give it a B plus just because they could easily get into the playoffs this year, and if they do, he'll give them a boost to at least not get swept when they face likely the Colorado Avalanche. Might give them a chance. Who knows? Foreshadowing might win. In Vancouver, B plus two. I do like. I like quantity trades, so I do like the amount of picks they got there.
Yeah, I will say a theme for these future trades is that whenever a young team buys, like adds a piece, even if they're kind of older, I don't fit the window, I do tend to give them a higher grade. I just like when teams do that, kind of support their young core. But this is a different example here. We've got Yegor Chinnikov going to the Penguins for Danton Heinen, a 26 second and a 27 third. This I will just go right away and say this was terrible asset management by Columbus. I'm giving them a straight C. I mean, they would have gotten him for a lot less if they continued to hold on to him, but knowing that they just didn't really give him an opportunity, being that he was a former first round pick, I'm very disappointed in how his tenure in Columbus went and ended. That being said, now that we can see that he's gotten into some new scenery, he is lighting the lamp for Pittsburgh at a pace never seen before in his career. He has been worth more than his 2.1 million cap hit for the season in his little stretch of games already. And I think they're definitely going to resign him. He's going to be a big part of that forward core going forward. I'll give the Penguins an A for taking a chance on Yegor Chinnikov.
Yeah, I have an A as well. I have an A and C. We actually have the same exact grades for these. You already pretty much covered Chinnikov. The reason I have the Heinen trade as a C, and I'm guessing you do too, is he's just like, he's too old. He bounced around like probably like 5 different teams already, and he's coming back to the Blue Jackets, I think, for the second time, and he's already been on the Penguins like twice. So they just keep moving him around. And he's too old to like start fresh somewhere. So it kind of essentially feels like it's just Chinikov for 2 picks, then like maybe a fourth liner. Although he's not a fourth liner, but at this rate, he's basically going to be a
fourth line equivalent on defense.
Fourth line equivalent, yeah. So yeah, just to see, Jackets do not need to be selling young guys when they're
making that
starting
push.
to make pushes. Yeah. So I don't know. Don't really like it.
Up next, we've got the Rasmus Anderson deal. We're getting into like January now, I believe. Vegas I will give some prior context. Pietrangelo was medically forced to retire, so they desperately have needed a right shot defenseman, and Anderson was the hottest in the market. So like Vegas does, they go and get the hottest guy in the market. His deal was 50% retained, and due to that, they had to pay quite the cost for him. They gave up Zach Whitecloud, an older, less effective right shot D. Prospect Abram Weeb, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, sorry, Abram. A 27 first and a 28 second. I don't think Vegas really likes drafting very much. I don't think they've ever had like their first. But I gave Vegas a B plus. Like I said, he fills that Petrangelo-sized hole, and they got to move off of a bottom pairing guy to get a middle pairing puck mover. They do have Shea Theodore on that top pair on the right side. The package was definitely steep, but the retained is very valuable on Vegas, who's just super cap strapped all the time. Permanent contention window, Vegas Golden Knights. But this is an A plus for Calgary. This was like the domino to fall, and they're like, fuck it, we're rebuilding. And just for that, I think this bumps up their grade very heavily. But on top of that, like we said, there's a crazy package they're coming back for this, and you can take on that $2.25 million cap hit and retain some of his salary for a year, just so you can begin that rebuild. I love this deal for Calgary, and I like it for Vegas as well.
Yeah, honestly, I was a little lower on Vegas, just because, basically, like, envision this 15 years' time, Vegas Golden Knights, they give up their last IR, Pavel Dorofeev, to, I don't know, the fucking Senators in 15 years. They have no more trades ever, they have no more picks ever, and they get erased from the league. So yeah, Vegas, like you said, they hate drafting. Very very funny, but it always makes them a fun team to watch because they're always like doing bullshit like that. But yeah, insane trade for Calgary, like you said with the cap space. That's basically just like something to feed, like you said, the cap strap, I guess, to get even more back when Calgary couldn't care less about that cap hit. So retaining that just to get even more out of the trade, insane by Calgary. Very good.
You'll learn here, having that cap space to retain, like this Panarin deal, is an asset in itself. It gets you a lot more, but not really in this trade. This is unlike the Anderson deal, I would say this is almost the opposite. It's a lose-lose, really. Spoilers for my grade. The Kings get Panarin at 50% of his like $11.1 million cap hit for this year, and the Rangers get Liam Greentree, a pretty decent prospect, a conditional third and conditional fourth, and both of those conditions are kind of centered around the Kings winning playoff series, so we're just gonna not worry about those for now.
Yeah, I think we had the conditional 28. Fourth was the Kings have to win 2 rounds.
Crazy.
The third was they have to win 1 round. We know how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
They're likely might not even make the playoffs in the first place, and we saw they've done the past couple of years, but they probably won't face Edmonton this year, so I guess that's what they're banking on. But
I do have to give the Kings a little bit of credit for going for it in Kopitar's last year. It's very unfortunate that they get him, and then it goes into the Olympic break, and Fiala's hurt. I think if Fiala's back, this team is definitely like confirmed wild card 2. I don't think that's the case anymore. But yeah, it was still the wrong choice. They definitely cemented their status as mediocre and signed him for 2 more years. They extended Panarin for a 2x11 of like barely making the playoffs. This trade on its own is great value, but taking in team context, you have to bump this down to a C. And then for the Rangers, this is the D+. They've just been a disaster class in managing for the last few seasons. The optics of acquiring a good prospect, but 2 mid-round conditional picks for a 2-time Hart finalist is just terrible, unheard of. Obviously, he had that no-move clause, but yeah, they could have not sent out that letter talking about, we need to tell everyone, and his value would have been significantly higher. They could have kept things a little bit better under wraps, and I think they get more for Panarin. But they rangered and decided not to, and were very incompetent, and this is their underwhelming return package as a result. D+ for the Rangers.
Yeah, like you said, the Rangers could have got so much more if they weren't so obvious about getting rid of everything, selling the farm. When in the past they've been a stingy team against doing that, so the Kings could have thought this year that it was going to be the same and have to give up more. But the Rangers just like a lot of media attention, whatever. And I have the Kings trade as a D too, because yes, it's Artemi Panarin. Yes, he's a 2-time Hart finalist. But adding a piece to a very, very, very old core, like you said, many guys retiring just at the end of this season alone, for Panarin, who's also older, and they're not even in the playoffs. I think I'm not sure if they were like right in wild card 2, or they might have actually still been divisional when this trade happened. But they were falling off rapidly. So I was like, you're just like trying to like put one piece of tape over a ship with a bunch of holes in it just to get back into the playoffs again. Like, I don't know, the Kings, they should like follow the Capitals, Penguins, start rebuilding again, because they have about that same age core. They just need to let it go. And I think this year's going to be no different from the last 4 years in playoff success.
I do see a world, now that I'm thinking about it, where the Kings could sell off Panarin if they just nothing's working in 12, 24 months' time when they has some time left on his current extension. That could happen. But either way, I don't like this. And then I really don't like this from the Rangers either, because they bring out that letter, they sell Panarin, and then they price teams, mostly the Wild, out of Trocheck and other assets. They're all over the place, man. They are maybe in the worst situation of any team in the entire NHL. Definitely in the East. Oh, yeah. Moving on, we've got another Penguins trade. The Penguins get Sam Girard in a 2028 second and give Colorado Brett Kulak. This one is very interesting. I have some opinions on this. Pens get an A+. They got a second rounder swap, bottom pairing, left shot defenseman, which is crazy value. Obviously, Girard is a bit more, and he's actually the most expensive bottom pairing left shot defenseman in the entire NHL, but that's fine. I think Girard is better than Brett Kulak. So you get the better player, you have the cap space to take him on, and you get a second for doing so. A+, great optics, asset management from Pittsburgh. B for Colorado, though, they did get to free up cap space in order to make some deals later on that I thought were slam dunks. This isolated trade is probably like a C minus in my opinion, but if we use context for what happens later, I bump this up to a B. Kulak instead of Girard, I don't think he's like that much worse. It's not going to be the difference between winning the Stanley Cup and not. And they got the cap space in order to get players that could be that difference. So this turned out pretty decent for Colorado.
Yeah, like you said, very good for Pittsburgh, very good potentially for Colorado for the Cup window. I have a B for them as well, just because, it's whatever. They're basically kind of just like swapping a D for a better D and giving up a pick. That's all it is. The only reason I have the Penguins as an A and not an A+ is because you're getting the Colorado next year, as well as probably going to be like a top 5 regular season team in the NHL. So the second round pick's not going to be a great second round pick. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Basically a third. But yeah, definitely an A, because get a young guy, help Crosby and Malkin send off, and then also he will be young enough when they rebuild to be a veteran at that point. So do like that.
Yeah. All right, now we've got the Connor Murphy deal. Edmonton picks up Connor Murphy at a 50% retained from Chicago in exchange for a 2028 second. A for Edmonton. This is a fantastic deal. If we take a look at that depth chart, the lineup, they now have a very defensive defenseman playing with an offensive defenseman on both of their top 2 pairings. That first pair's got Ekholm, who's defensive, obviously, and Bouchard, who's very offensive, obviously. And then the second pairing is Murphy with Jake Wallman on paper. I don't know if they've been running that just yet, but that's what you've got on paper. And Bouchard, though he's been stuck on a terrible Chicago team for this entire 2020s, he's had some very good defensive underlying numbers. I think he's a super valuable asset to Edmonton, and they definitely upgraded their D-core as a whole with this deal. This was a great move by them. Chicago's going to get a C+. There's some other right shot defensemen that were moved for similar or more packages, and I think those players were worse than Connor Murphy. They did get a second for a pending UFA, but I really think Chicago could have sold him earlier and gotten more, like maybe last year or earlier this season. They were never going to do anything in the first place at any point this or last year, like as far as contending goes. So C+, questionable management, but they did still get a second for a 32-year-old UFA, so can't be too hard on them.
Yeah, I actually have Chicago as a straight D here. Others A-, basically the same reasons you said. I could have given them A, it's whatever. But the thing with the Connor Murphy trade for Chicago, they're at that point where a 2028 second, it's like they're already going to be hopefully trying to enter window there. Like,
yeah,
Chicago, out of like all these young teams, you think of like, Utah, Anaheim, San Jose, Montreal. I think that's the main 4. Chicago's like the oldest out of those in terms of like the young core. So a 2028 second for like you said, the unrestricted free agent. They could have gotten rid of him either way earlier, or just kept him and re-signed him for when they eventually do start contending. So I just really don't like this trade from Chicago at all. I think they trade him either way earlier or don't trade him at all. This is like, in my opinion, worst case scenario for Chicago getting rid of Connor Murphy, because it's just like it's 120, 28 for a guy they could have re-signed or traded earlier. Just gonna keep saying that. Don't like it. Yeah, for Edmonton's great. They need a defenseman bad. We know how they play defense in Edmonton.
Yeah. All right, we've got the first Wild trade of the video, the one you've all been waiting for. The Wild get their center. Just kidding. It's Michael McCarron in exchange for a 2028 second. Funny enough. We'll just go right into the grades. For the Wild, this is a B-. I've been back and forth on this trade ever since it happened. My initial reaction was, why the fuck are we giving up a second-round pick for a fourth-line center? Especially when we already have a fourth-line center. But he does bring some stuff to the table that I guess Nico Sturm, our fourth-line center, doesn't. He doesn't win as many face-offs, but he still wins over 50%. He's a good penalty killer, and he's got that extra physicality that I really do like come playoff time. So ever since the deals happened, my opinions of this has gone up and up. Still, I think they paid way too much for him. I'm going to give this a B- for our Minnesota Wild. For Predators, straight A+. This is the absolute most you could get for Michael McCarron, and they got it. They could have sold more. I'm going to say this for every Nashville trade. Eric Howell is out there, and I think he's a pending UFA. Ryan O'Reilly's got another year after this on his deal. They could have and should have sold those guys and just really gone for it, a la Washington Capitals. But they didn't. But this trade in isolation, A+. Great job by Nashville.
Yeah, we have the same grades for this one here, mostly for the same reasons. Like you said, Nashville, A+, fourth liner for a second rounder. You take the Connor Murphy trade we just talked about. This is just like an extremely way better version of that.
Yeah.
Out of the park, better. But yeah, B- for the Wild. It would be like a C if it was any other team, maybe even a D. But I feel like the Wild are maybe one of like two teams that this trade like somehow just works for them and not being terrible. Definitely a bit of an overpay, but I think Bill Guerin's kind of just trying to like figure out our third and fourth line, experiment with like juggling around like 14 forwards for playoff time, just do like some bullshit like that. And we did both grade these before they started playing. Obviously, McCarron's been insane, so this looks like an A from the Wild since he's played. But yeah, B- initially. Yeah, I just think they can. It's actually not bad for lineup questions. I think just having more depth, especially against a team like Dallas or Colorado, in the first round will be great. They'll always stay rested.
Yeah,
I think they'll be able to lean on their bottom six more in the playoffs then.
We could see a fourth line of McCarron and Sturm. McCarron's a right shot, Sturm's a left, so depending on what side it's on, one or the other could take the face off. With either like Foligno or Trennian, regardless of who it is, that's a super fucking physical fourth line that nobody wants to play against. I love that. So that part of the deal is great. A+ for Nashville, B- for the Wild. For both of us. Moving on. We've got another second rounder being dealt, this time along with a fourth, to Vancouver in exchange for Tyler Myers at half salary retention. Dallas desperately needed to get a right shot defenseman. Their left side is stacked. They've got Harley, Heiskanen, and Lundell, but then their right side, not a ton going for him. Until this deal, Tyler Myers is a right shot defenseman, and that's pretty much all. He's tall, and he's a right shot defenseman. He's not that good, but he has an NHL level body. He can play on the right side. I'm going to give the C+ because they could have gone for it really and tried to get Connor Murphy, who's a way better option. They could have gotten, for a second rounder, by the way, which they gave up for Myers anyways. Could have gotten Weegar, which would have been a little bit more costly, as we'll see later on. But Tyler Myers will do, I guess. Maybe they kind of see the deadline Colorado's had, the team that they have, they're going, not so sure if this is our year. They go a little bit more conservative. I can respect it. I'll give them a C+. And for Vancouver, this is an A-. They're not going to get like a first for this guy, but they got almost, or like as close to that as possible, the most out of Tyler Myers as possible. I honestly could have given this a higher grade. Great sell-off by Vancouver, all deadline.
Yeah, I did give this an A and then a slightly lower C for Dallas, because this whole trade, you can sum it up in terms of Vancouver saying, who needs a right-handed defenseman? And then Dallas is like, me. And then Vancouver just keeps going, who needs right-handed defenseman? Anyone? Oh, we're just gonna throw more. Oh, hey Dallas, give us a ton of shit for him.
Yep.
Just basically a fleece. Worse Connor Murphy for more return. It's just like a way better version of that Murphy trade.
Yeah.
And for Vancouver especially, they're just like gobbling up picks right now. So love that. And then Dallas, whatever. I guess I want to play them a little less in the playoffs now. They
Slightly.
They have it now, but it's like I don't know. Maybe Matt Boldy can like do some edge work on him for.
We've got Colorado acquiring Nick Blankenberg from the Predators for a 2027 fifth rounder. I don't have a ton to say about this one. A for Colorado, they don't have to give up a ton to get an extra body. This is a much better version of a deal the Wild made later on in the deadline. Now they have some injury insurance on the right side of their defense. Actually, from the games I saw against the Predators, Nick Blankenberg looked really good. I think it'd be very impactful in the event that somebody does get hurt and he comes in. But for now, he's their fourth right shot defenseman in their lineup, and that's totally fine. Only give a fifth to get him. A for Colorado. C plus for Nashville. You compare it to some other deals they made. They probably could have gotten a little more out of it. You would want a little more out of it. You can't really hate on the move just because Blankenberg is a pending UFA, but you could want a little bit more. I'll give him a C plus though.
Yeah, I guess a B plus for Colorado. Kind of just same thing you said, and then D for Nashville because it's like, come on, man, a 2027 fifth from the likely present winning team. It's like, oh my god, bro. You basically just like gave a D away for a future AHL player for their entire career. Cause like, unless it's Kirill Kaprizov, who are you getting with like the 32nd fifth round pick? Like,
clip that and age it. We'll see how that goes. But I agree fully.
Yeah, please clip that. Let's see it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Random trade.
All right, we've got a pretty significant one here, a little bit more of a surprising one. Utah is going to get Mackenzie Weegar from Calgary in exchange for Ole Mata, Jonathan Castagna, and then 3 seconds, only one of them being actually theirs. I think that's an important part of it there. B for Utah. This is me thinking with my heart instead of my head. Like I said, love it when teams see their young core doing good, getting them into a playoff position or playoff contention, and they go, you know what, we're going to reward you for that. Here's this player on a trade. And they went with Mackenzie Weegar. It's definitely a year or two too early to make that. I will go ahead and admit that, jump out and say that right away. But I've got to give them a lot of respect for buying him. I think he really makes their top four a lot better. They've got Sergachev, Weegar, Dursey, and I can't think of the fourth one off the top of my head. But they've got a good top four group. I think Utah goes from being more of an easy out in the first to being like serious team, especially if Amelka can play good. This is a good one. Let's see. We've got Marino. Yeah, Weegar, Dursey, Marino, and Sergachev when he's healthy. So that's a good top four. A- for Calgary. Again, this is another example of them just embracing the rebuild. I love that. Weegar is 32. He's still got a lot of time on his deal. Probably never going to have his value that high again if he stays in Calgary. It's not like he's going to have some crazy season on a shit Flames team. They did not get a first, so I did give them an A-, but they pretty much got one in aggregate. That's it for me though. A-.
Yeah, I got an A+ here. So we're gonna go for the B-. That minus in the B is basically just bias checking your video.
That's fair.
Bias check, and then A+ for Calgary. If we go back here, 2026 second for the Rangers, that's basically a first. It's the Rangers. They're gonna be like a bottom 5 team. Ottawa too, they're gonna be like, they're kind of doing whatever.
Like a mid-second round.
And then the Mammoth one, so you have 2 mid-seconds, and then a top 5 second, and then a prospect, and then a D to fill the D you just got rid of, so your lineup's not too AHL-y, so you can at least like win 10 games a season. So I have an A+ because Calgary's just like, they're just consuming picks. I think they got like 10 or 12 total like first through third round draft picks throughout this entire deadline. They're just gobbling up picks. I said they're going to be scary. I said 3 years, but it's probably going to be like 5 years at least. But still, Calgary's cooking with the picks, and I love this trade for Calgary. They're getting rid of Weegar, who they're not going to use at all once they finish the rebuild. So it's like, yeah, get a lot from him. I love it for Calgary.
Yeah, and then why don't you get us started on this deal here, Cole?
Oh boy, Andrew Mangiapane and a conditional first in 27 for Dickinson and Doc.
Colton
Doc, yes. That one. Yeah, Edmonton, they need some centers. They got some centers, but... Oh, wait, here's yours. I went through yours, and I did not give that a C minus.
Yeah.
So B minus for Edmonton because they are like, I feel like they're both kind of fourth line centers. I don't know. They're decent centers, I guess. And they also get a 50% retention Chicago receives 50% retention for Dickinson. So it's like an all right trade for Edmonton. They just get 2 depth pieces. Hopefully they can actually like make a run and not have McDavid need to get 50 points every playoffs. And then A+ for Chicago. This is very good. Like 27 first. They get a first for 2 depth guys who they're not going to need. Doc is like, it's a little bit like maybe want a little more from him, but like, come on, they got Mangiapane too, in the first. A+ for Chicago. I love it.
I fully agree. This is like the best case scenario. Mangiapane was not working out in Edmonton. He was scratched all the time, so they needed to get rid of him. They needed to get off of his salary. Chicago says, sure, we'll take a risk with him. The worst case scenario with Andrew Mangiapane is that he doesn't bounce back, and you're paying him more than you like to on a team that doesn't really even want to win games that badly anyways next year. Like, there's no risk. Best case scenario, he does bounce back in a higher lineup position. Maybe he's playing with Connor Bedard, maybe he's playing with Frank Nazar, and you can sell him next deadline and to a team for more than you really got for him. And also they got a fucking first round pick, top 12 protected, but a first round pick. There's no way they were asking for that for Jason Dickinson. Colton Dach could maybe be something at some point, but I think he's more of an AHLer right now. Dickinson is a 4th line center, which Edmonton did need, but whew, what an overpay to get him at 50% retained. C minus for Edmonton, and honestly, I could go a little bit lower in my opinion. I think that giving up a first in this trade is not going to be looked back upon good. I don't think this is the Oilers' year, especially with their goaltending. This giving up this first was needless. They could have done more with that come the offseason. But here we are. They still did get a valuable player in Jason Dickinson, so I'll say C minus and A+ for Chicago. Now we've got the Nicholas Waugh deal. Talk about another first rounder conditional given up for pretty much a 4th line center, but in this case I actually like this deal a lot more. The conditions on that first are a little bit confusing, but if it's somehow a top 10 pick, they have to roll it over due to another deal. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be top 10. They're just going to get the first rounder in 2027 from Colorado. They also get conditional 2026 5th rounder, which the conditions of that don't really matter. It's fucking 5th rounder. Colorado gets Nick Waugh. He is their 4th line center on paper, given another deal that they're going to make later on. But I think he's going to be their 3rd line center. This is, of all the deals they made this deadline, on paper, this is honestly the worst. But I think it has tremendous upside. It's just very steep cost. He's good defensive center. I don't know. I like him. Bottom 6 center. But if Colorado suffers an early playoff exit, this could age poorly. For the Leafs, a B. This is crazy value in my opinion. And yeah, how about for you?
Yeah, like you said, it feels like the only thing the Avalanche were missing at this point was bottom 6, bottom 3 forward centers, and then maybe like another 3rd pair defenseman. But that's definitely like on the afterburner, and then obviously they don't need any goaltending.
Yeah.
So they kind of just picked up the last piece they need. If you time on this after another trade they make.
Yeah.
Second to last piece they need, I guess. So we'll get over that in a second. And yeah, at least they get some good stuff from him. They're kind of embracing the rebuild. I don't know. It's Toronto Maple Leafs. What the fuck are they doing? They're just like a slightly better version of the Rangers. I don't know.
They're punting on this year, maybe.
It's a B though. They get a first, whatever, and a conditional 5th. I don't know. It's all right.
They'll take it. I don't know what the Leafs are doing, but they'll take it. All right. The Michael Bunting deal. Dallas gets Michael Bunting in exchange for a 2026 3rd. My initial reaction to this actually was pretty crazy. I thought Michael Bunting was a center, so I was freaking out that Dallas gave up less to get Nashville's 3rd line center than we did to give up Nashville's 4th line center. That's not the case. He's a left winger. Even still, this is pretty good value for Dallas. This is like their Bobby Brink spoiler equivalent. And if you look at the Dallas Stars lineup, beyond their very stacked top 6, they're a little bit shaky when it comes to depth, but not anymore with the addition of Michael Bunting. Yeah, this is good come playoff time for them. I'm a little bit nervous about facing Dallas after this deadline, but I already was to begin with. A for Nashville. Great job. You're selling a valuable piece. You got good return for him. Again, should have sold harder, but I'll give him an A just because they actually got rid of their pending UFA, Mike Bunting.
Yeah, I have an A for Nashville as well, and then a B plus for Dallas. Like you said, kind of mirroring the Minnesota trade. Dallas, it is a left wing instead of a center, but they do give up a third instead of a second. So yeah, just throw a plus into that B for me. Call it a day. Nashville gets more picks, gives up more depth guys, which they don't really need, and Dallas becomes more scary. So I think a pretty good trade overall between both teams. Not too much to say there.
Yeah, win-win given context I would go for. Now we've got Connor Garland, Cole's favorite team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, in exchange for a second and a third in 26 and 28. I like this for both teams. Again, this is another softer win-win, a little less impact. I think Connor Garland's the smartest winger in the league. He is signed for 6 years after this deal expires, which it does this year, which is pretty crazy for a middle six winger, which Connor Garland is. But I think he could really help one of their young centers on a line, and he can produce throughout the entirety of that deal. I'm not super worried about him getting super bad until maybe the last year or two of that deal. I think this does really significantly help Columbus this season getting into the playoffs. And, little side note, the picks that they traded to get Connor Garland were mostly acquired via the David Jiricek trade. I think that's kind of funny. Same with Mason Marchment earlier in the season. But I don't know, it doesn't bother me too much. Anyways, B plus for Vancouver. Same thing as I said for Nashville. I'm glad people are selling. They got pretty good return for him. Again, I would have wanted 2 seconds, maybe a first. So this is going to be a B plus, but I will take that any day for Vancouver. Go ahead.
Now, before I go over this trade, here's just a crazy thing that could happen, which I'd fully not want this to happen because I love the Jackets. But we're going to take a look at the 2023-2024 Vancouver Canucks. What happened? They were good. They made the playoffs. Next year, they're like, oh, we're going to be good as well. This year, what happened? Worst team of all time. 3-37 in their last, or 3 wins in 37 games. Blue Jackets, they've been bad. They're franchise defensemen. They're looking to make the playoffs. What could happen in the next 2 years?
It's just possible.
Saying.
I see.
But they're signing good guys here. They're signing Connor Garland. I love this trade for the Jackets because I want them to make the playoffs. I want Zach Werenski to see it just like Quinn Hughes. It's a star player who is on, right now, not a great team, so they're giving him support, which Vancouver should have done. Now we have Quinn Hughes instead, so whatever. Yeah, because of my love for the Jackets and Zach Werenski, I'm giving this an A just because, like you said, Connor Garland, he's a very smart winger, and I think this is the last piece they need to make it into the playoffs. They were like bottom of the barrel in the East just like a month or two ago. Now they're like 3 points out, 1 point out. So love this trade for Columbus and then Vancouver. They get some picks. Not too bad.
We will take that as a win-win. This deal, though, not so much in my opinion. Buffalo, they pivot off the Parayko deal. They can't get that physical right shot defenseman, so they say, why not just get 2? They get Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn from the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for Isaac Rosen, Jacob Bryson, 2027 second, and a conditional 4th in 2026. I honestly think a C- is generous for Buffalo here. The most confusing trade of the deadline for sure. They get 2 pending UFAs who I don't even know if they're going to resign. I don't know where they fit into Buffalo's lineup. Their decor is huge and it's stacked and it's bolstered for the playoffs with these 2 pickups, but I don't think this was very necessary at all. I don't think Luke Schenn or Logan Stanley at this point in their careers are that impactful of players. Logan Stanley has fooled everybody. He scored 1 goal a year pretty much the entirety of his career. This year he scored quite a few more. He's tall. GMs are like, oh, must get him. So they did. But I don't like this one. A plus for Winnipeg, though. Not only do they get a couple picks and then like a AHLer in Bryson, Isaac Rosen is fantastic. He's been like the most hard-stuck AHL young prospect winger. He's such a good goal scorer at the AHL level. He deserves some time, but Buffalo has a log jam of young wingers, so he hasn't gotten that opportunity on a Winnipeg that should be retooling/reselling. I really hope that they give Isaac Rosen the opportunity. And just the fact that they're moving off of pieces is really satisfying for me as a rival fan.
Yeah, A plus for Winnipeg as well. Absolute fleece. Editing Dylan replay that Dylan face for the management about that Buffalo trade.
Logan Stanley. He's really tall.
He's really tall. Size doesn't matter, so we'll get to in Bobby Brink. Yeah, I do have a C for Buffalo instead because 15-year playoff draft for Buffalo. I think management was just like, okay, if we sign Logan Stanley this year, this guarantees that we at least make the playoffs, even if like we turn into a dumpster fire for the rest of the year. Because we're at a point, this is like the buffer that guarantees us to get in the playoffs for this year. I think that's what they're doing.
I respect it.
Like,
I want them to.
They don't need it. Like, I think they're first in the Atlantic now, which is insane.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming, obviously. But yeah, still a C because I don't think they need to do that. This is like a paranoid get into the playoffs trade when they're still going to be like growing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shit trade.
All right, the most polarizing, we probably have the most differing in opinions on this deal, the most surprising deal of the deadline, the John Carlson trade. Anaheim receives John Carlson from the Washington Capitals in exchange for a 2026 conditional first that would roll over to next year if Anaheim somehow misses the playoffs, and a 2027 third. This is just, yeah, I can't say it enough how shocking this was. It was at like 1 in the morning. The parallels are between here and the Uyghur deal where you've got a young core that's doing really good, in fact, leading the division right now. And they add to support them with a John Carlson, who they needed a right shot defenseman. They needed some more offense from the blue line. They get him pending UFA, 36 years old. Don't let that fool you. He's still very good. But giving up a first is pretty costly. I can see this being very bad if they're just a first-round exit and they don't re-sign when he goes back to Washington or something anyways. But this is a B. A- for Washington for the sole reason that this is like an emotional loss. But again, the same way that I have to respect the Anaheim Ducks and the Utah Mammoth for buying around their young core, I have to respect the Washington Capitals for selling when realizing that they're not a real contender in this loaded Eastern Conference. This must not be great for locker room morale either. That does dock them a little bit too. But there is a world where John Carlson could just fucking re-sign there in like 3 months and it's all fine and dandy anyways. They got a huge package for him. Great work, Washington. Surprising, but great.
Yeah, I have A+ for Washington. This is great. I'm giving this an A+, totally disregarding team morale because I don't really care. They get very likely, a 2026 first from... So if we look at this, the Pacific, the Ducks are barely a playoff team in the East. I
don't think they are.
Yeah, they're I think 17th or 18th in the league. So this is a much better first-round pick than it looks like. When you say, oh, it's the first-round pick of a division leader, surely it's like a top 5 pick. No.
Middle of the round.
Or a bottom 5 pick, I mean. Middle of the round. Yeah, I have a C for Anaheim. This is kind of like the Buffalo Logan Stanley trade in the fact that they're just like getting a piece to guarantee they get into the playoffs this year when they don't need it, and they also don't need to win this year. You said it was supporting the core, but I'm also thinking about Carlson just like fully dipping after this year ends. He's like, oh, I got in the playoffs. Let me go back on the Capitals and like meet Ryan Ovechkin a little bit more until he gets 1,000 goals and then retire. I don't know. Very good trade for the Capitals, and the Ducks. It's like it basically just feels like a rental for an old defenseman.
Yeah,
A little bit of veteran support will help. So, not terrible.
We've got another big trade for a right shot defenseman. Lots of quantity here. Detroit's going to get Justin Falk, and St. Louis is going to get Justin Hall, an older and worse right shot defenseman. Dmitry Buchnikov, we're going to go with that pronunciation. And then a first and third in 2026. Holy Hall. Detroit desperately needs some help on the D-core. He's going to be a middle pairing right shot guy for them. So I'm going to give them a pretty strong boost to their grade for that. But I can't give them a very high grade on the sole reason that this is a crazy thing to give up. Buchnikov is a very valuable prospect. I don't think this is Detroit's year. I don't know how good Falk is going to be for the next few years at his age. They like I say at the end here, they address an area of need, but they do so without a cup caliber roster in a seller's market. They give up a lot for Justin Falk. B-. A for St. Louis, though. I'm just going to keep repeating the same shit. Maximum value, older asset, team that needs to sell. Detroit does get him for another year after this with his contract, so that helps them. But St. Louis has to be thrilled with this package. I mean, Buchnikov, pretty good KHL player, 22 years old. He adds to St. Louis's decently solid young core that they're building up with Snuggerud, Dvorsky, Holloway, Broberg. I like this for St. Louis a lot.
Yeah, literally nothing to say for Detroit. You covered that perfectly. B- as well for me. I have an A+ for St. Louis because I'm actually kind of predicting Detroit to fall into either a third in division or even a wildcard team, which turns that 2026 first St. Louis gets and the third into much better first and thirds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually have Detroit at this moment finishing like, well, since it's the East, they're probably going to, even if they're wildcard, they're probably going to be like 12th or 13th. That's my guess. They're 7th now. They were like 3rd a month ago. So they've fallen off a little bit, and I think they're going to continue falling into the wildcard spot. So that's why I have St. Louis as an A+, because I think those are going to be phenomenal picks.
Either way,
given that fall off.
Let's see. Yeah, 2026 first. That's 2 like top 15, maybe top 18, top 20 at worst. First round picks next year's draft for a team that needs to rebuild. Great work, St. Louis. Got another Wild trade here. Jeff Petrie, the Wild pick him up in exchange for a conditional 2026 7th. It could become a 5th if Petrie plays in over half of the Wild's playoff games and they win 2 rounds this year. This is injury insurance. This is like the Blankenberg deal, but it's worse because he's older. Petrie's a great vet. He's been around a lot. He's big. We'll take that. You could, argue him or Bogosian. I don't. Honestly, at this point, I've just accepted Zach Bogosian. And we got him knowing that we were going to give up Jurček later on in the deadline. Spoiler. But I'd rather not see Petrie suit up for us at this point in his career. But his presence in the press box does come for me a little bit. This is a B for Florida because you get a super late round pick for a guy. Not crazy value, but it's not like you were going to get a ton anyways. So I'll still give them a B. It's better than future considerations. No foreshadowing. B.
Speaking of future considerations, C+ for the Wild because I don't think Petrie will see a minute on the ice unless we get 3 defensemen injured, and he has to end up playing unless we want to get some AHL guys back up, fucking Carson Lambos or whatever. I don't even know if he's still in the Iowa Wild. Whatever. Veteran presence in the press box. I did grade this trade after the Nick Foligno trade. I'm just going to say that now. And we already have Marcus Foligno. We have a lot of veterans, so I feel like it's like, yeah, they got injury support, but I feel like it's literally just so we can say, oh, we have 8 defensemen now. I don't think he's ever going to play. I think it's just a waste of a pick. It is most definitely going to be a 7th rounder, so it's like whatever. And Florida's like, whatever, they get a 7th rounder for nothing. So I don't know, just kind of a weird trade for me. I don't really like it for either team, but I also don't hate it.
It's just a nothing deal. That's a good way of putting it.
Speaking of nothing deals.
Here we go. Future considerations. So, nothing, in NHL speak, in exchange for Nick Foligno. I think this is actually kind of a lose-lose. While the emotional side says, oh, it's so sweet, reuniting the Foligno bros, when is Nick going to play? When is he going to play? Maybe Marcus is hurt, more hurt than we think, and he is not going to come back, and Nick can fill in for him. But even still, I'd rather see Trenyan, McCarron, and Sturm on the 4th line than a 38-year-old Nick Foligno. He was a former captain for 2 different teams. He's got some leadership, but I don't give a fuck. I don't know. I don't think we needed to do this one. We have one too many forwards, even accounting for injury insurance with this deal. But you give up nothing to get him. B-, I guess. C- for Chicago. They did do the gentlemanly thing and allow their captain to chase a cup, is what people keep saying. But I feel bad for Connor Bedard and those younger players in the locker room that built relationship with him. I'm gonna go the morale angle again here. But Captain Bedard coming up soon. I think that's fun. They didn't get anything for their captain. C-. Wild love trading for captains.
Yeah, I have a C as well. I will go for morale here because there's literally nothing else to go off of on the trade, so we kind of have to. Like you said, yeah, Bedard's still growing. He's basically Nick Foligno's son. It's like, no more dad. Bye Bedard.
Yep.
And then the Wild, like you said, Foligno's probably going to be the last guy they lace up on forwards because they're obviously not going to start him over Marcus Foligno because he's our guy. And he's not better than a McCarron, a Fabry, a Brink, a Sturm, a Trenyan, any of those guys either. So he's just a locker room guy, but they give up nothing for him, so it's not terrible, but it's also fully useless. I don't know. It's like the Petrie trade before a Ford, who's the brother of a guy. I don't know. It's literally just like an Instagram post trade.
Yeah. It's like the Foligno Foundation. Like, that's what it is. But this trade is not that. The Wild receive Bobby Brink, high school hockey tournament legend, in exchange for David Jiricek, putting an end to the Jiricek saga. A- for the Wild. We didn't get our biggest need, which was a top 6 center, but our second biggest need was scoring depth, and this really does address it. Bobby Brink's on damn near 2020 pace. He's done that in the past. He's smart, two-way guy. He can fill in on that second line when a guy like JoJo is out, like it has been these past couple games. Yeah, I like Bobby Brink, not just because he's from Minnesota. I think he adds a lot to this team. Maybe he doesn't play in the playoffs because he's 5'8", and Guerin and Hines see that and go, oh, we need the bigger guys instead. But I think he's super impactful. Putting him on the third line with Tarasenko and Yurov, which is what they've done at times, it's really nice. I love the idea of that. And for Philly, C+. They got the worst player in this deal in Jiricek, but gambling on a big 22-year-old right-shot defenseman is totally fine, especially when we consider that Bobby Brink was stuck in their logjam of young, good wingers. This has allowed a fellow Minnesota high school hockey tournament legend, Alex Bump, to jump up from the AHL and play. He looks like he's going to be good goal scorer. Thank you for scoring 4 on Cretin like 4 years ago. I appreciate that. But yeah, this is a win-win with some context. Still a C+ though for Philly. I think Wild won this deal.
Yeah, I do have a B for Philadelphia here. This is before I saw any Brink footage, by the way. It's an A for the Wild after seeing Brink footage. I love him now. I wish I would have degraded this. But I actually have a B for Philadelphia because I do think David Jiricek, I don't think he's going to grow that much, but I think Philadelphia is like one of the teams he can grow the most in. They definitely have like a defense-first system, and I think that's going to help Jiricek actually grow instead of just being like hung out to dry as a young defenseman on other teams he could have been traded to. So I like this for Philadelphia. They do give up the better player, but I also don't think Brink fits in Philadelphia's system because he's a 5'8" winger. He's always going to have to be on the boards every time during the breakout. It's just like it doesn't fit. So I think it's actually not bad for Philadelphia. And then we're going to ignore this B-. Like I said, this is before the trade. I love Brink. He's like, I saw he was 5'8". He does not play like he's 5'8".
Yeah, I would agree.
He plays like a solid 5'11", 6-foot winger. He's smart. He's fast. He looks better than Johansson at times playing with Ekin-Boldy, but that is also because he's playing with Ekin-Boldy. Yeah, he's a third liner minimum, and playing with the tall center in Yurov, the skilled veteran in Tarasenko. That's a pretty dangerous looking third line now. So yeah, really like this for the Wild. I have this as an A- like you said after the trade. This is just my grade as it happened. So.
Here we go, another nothing deal for the Wild.
Oh,
We're going to try to move through this one a little bit quicker. Florida gets Vinny Hinostroza, and we get to get rid of him. We get nothing back for him, and I guess it makes sense. C+ for the Wild. This is the highest I'll give a team for receiving nothing for an NHL body. But with the log jam, we'll use that word again, of bottom 6 wingers, Hinostroza needed to go. I really didn't like him on the 4th line this year, past November 1st, I guess. Our depth is a lot more sized now. I love that. And this is B for Florida. Just getting a borderline NHL player for their injury-riddled team. He could play some games for them. He gets to go move to a nice place. Good for him. Good for Florida. Low stakes, nothing. Win-win deal.
Yeah, I did actually forget to put my grade in here. I have a C+ as well and a B- for Hinostroza. This is not a B for the Wild, giving up nothing. Giving up nothing for a B is kind of crazy, actually. I know, it's not supposed to be. But yeah, moving off Hinostroza, he only looked good when he was playing with Hartman like those 5 games at the beginning of the year, and he's done nothing since then. And I don't know, it's just like Florida's getting a depth guy when they're like trying to figure out if they need to start rebuilding after winning 2 cups. I don't know what the fuck's going on in Florida. They're probably going to end up making the playoffs somehow anyways, so they'll end up using him then. But yeah, another body since they're super injured, like you said, very good. The Wild, they get rid of a guy, I guess. I wish they could have gotten even like a 2037. I don't know, that would have been nice. But they need to get rid of him. They need to free up cap space, so whatever. It's not the worst trade ever.
We'll take it. All right, now we've got, I had to add this one in later on, but Brayden Schenn to the Islanders in exchange for Jonathan Drouin, goalie prospect, and a 1st and 3rd in 26. What the fuck? What the fuck? This is a D for the Isles in my book. This is another story of the GM rewarding a young playoff-bound team with an older acquisition. But it's the wrong piece. The Isles, I guess, need a second-line center, but Shen is not the second-line center they need. 2 years after this one at $6.5 million for a 34-year-old. I mean, if we're lucky, he won't decline too hard. He might be half point a game and serviceable defensively, kind of physical. But that sounds like a third-line center to me. This deal makes no sense. A young team giving up their first when they're not going to make any noise in the playoffs is crazy. A+ for St. Louis. Great sell. And yeah, they take on Drouin, but they have the space to do it. His deal isn't super long, and it's not super expensive. The first is Colorado's, which is important to both sides. That's why Islanders aren't getting an F in my book. That's like 32nd overall, like worst, maybe late 20s if they don't make it super far in the playoffs. But this is quite the haul for Brayden Schenn. Great job, St. Louis.
This is my singular F in the trade. So picture this. Matthew Schaefer. He's 18, by the way. So he's not in his prime yet, but he's already playing like he's leading all rookies in goals as a defenseman. He has top 3 in like many advanced metric stats amongst all defensemen. He's top 5 in pretty much all stats among defensemen. At 18, he's insane. The Islanders need to look at the future, not now. Like you said, it's a reward for doing good, but the only reason they're doing good is because of Schaefer, and he's going to have like 22 years to do good. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They give up everything for him. Not everything, but like lots of, I don't know, like a prospect Drouin, he's like slightly younger too. 2 picks, like next year's picks. It's like St. Louis fleeced them like crazy. Like, here's Brayden Schenn, take him. Schaefer loves Brayden Schenn. He looked up to him as a kid. I don't know, like just lying out their ass, and Islanders fell for it. I don't know what the fuck. Like, they're losing to the Penguins in the first round of the playoffs. Like, we know that's happening.
Penguins.
Yeah, I don't know. Very, very shit trade. Easily the most one-sided trade of the deadline. It's terrible.
Good take. All right, we're going to move on to a more impactful one. We've got the Nazem Kadri deal. Colorado's getting Kadri and 27 fourth for Victor Olofsson, a center prospect, and Max Curran, and a 28 first and 27 second. The conditions on the first, this kind of applies to the Wild deal. It's top 10 protected, and then for the second, depends on the better of 2 choices. Not super impactful. This is a win-win. Huge. A-. This is a costly 35-year-old UFA for Colorado, but this is very clear. They're going all in for the Cup this year. Not a lot of other teams really did this, especially in the West, going all in like this. So good job. Good on Colorado being the best team in the league for going all in on getting the Cup. We already have seen Kadri play second-line center or wing on the second line, kicking Nelson off to wing. They're not going to stack the lines 1, 2, 3. Kadri's not going to be their third-line center, or he's not going to be their second and Nelson's third and Waugh's fourth. I can't imagine they do that. But yeah, you add in his previous ties with the Avs, and he should re-sign. He should be good for the remainder of his career in the NHL. He's not a UFA, I'm sorry. That's false information. Ignore that I said that. But yeah, the remainder of his career will be with the Avs, and hopefully he can win another Cup for them. At least that's what they want. I don't want that. A+ for Calgary. This is another sell. They got rid of their 2 biggest pieces. Calgary was probably the hardest sellers at the deadline itself. Most successful sellers, got the biggest haul. This is great. For a mid-30s guy who's honestly overpaid, they did retain some of his deal, I think like 25%. So that's important for both teams. But yeah, win-win. Biggest and most impactful win-win, in my opinion, of the deadline. A+ for Calgary.
Yeah, this is also my biggest win-win. A+ for both teams. Even if, like, let's say Kadri is a UFA, he's going to stay in Colorado because he was in Colorado, and Colorado's going for the Cup. They don't have to worry about him leaving. So I love that. They get retention. Avs need space. Calgary doesn't. They're like, here, take this guy. We'll take some space. Just get us a bunch of picks. You don't need them. And they get exactly that. Great trade for both teams. I really hate saying this, too, because I don't want, like, can Colorado not get better, please? Like, if Winnipeg did better last year, Colorado wouldn't have saw that. Well, I guess President's Trophy curse in general. Avs are trying to beat that, is what it comes down to. But yeah, like you said, Kadri's probably going to be rotating into, like, top 6, maybe even get a top-line shift or 2 in the playoffs. He's going to be, like, kind of going everywhere. So I like that. They're definitely going to use him. And obviously, we saw, unfortunately, when they played the Wild, Calgary was pretty good there. So, yeah, great trade for the Avalanche, unfortunately, because I don't want the Avalanche to be any better. Stop buying.
Please.
And, yeah, Calgary gets a ton of shit, like they have been for every deadline pick. Calgary's, like, demon time right now.
Probably you could argue, the two biggest winners of the deadline as a whole are these two teams. We'll go on to some bigger losers, though. The Kings get Scott Laughton for a conditional 2026 third. It could become a second if the Kings make the playoffs. That's up in the air. Could happen. I don't think it will, but it could. Why? Why are the LA Kings like this? Why is Ken Holland their GM? Why are they picking up depth centers when at best they're an 8 seed that loses in the first fucking round? They didn't really give up a lot to get him, but this doesn't move the needle at all. Anze Kopitar, I'm very sorry that you have to deal with this franchise to finish off your career. This is a B for the Leafs. Laughton desperately needed to go, and they got rid of him, so that's great. But you really feel like you could have gotten a little bit more for him. They gave up like a first and a prospect for him just last deadline, but we have to stick to our rule. We're only looking at this trade alone. Yeah, this is a B for Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto, I'm slightly lower on the Kings too, because it's like, what the fuck is this signing literally does not matter, because they're like, who cares if they make the playoffs? They get, I think it's a worse pick then. Yeah, so they don't want to make the playoffs because they're giving up a second instead of a third. And if they do make the playoffs, they're getting like fucking swept by any team in the West. Honestly, like they'll get swept by Vancouver if they go to the playoffs. I don't fucking know. the Kings are. Like you said, I don't know, it's a disaster. They're like, guys, we won a cup 14 years ago. It's our time again. And it's just not. And Toronto, soft sell, like you said, at least they're doing something right. They're probably going to end up like getting rid of like Matthews or something next year at this point, because maybe Toronto's smart. I don't know. Just a really weird trade. Kings, biggest losers that's in the deadline, and Toronto's just like kind of biggest nothing doers despite making a lot of trades. So, yeah, decent for Toronto because they did something right. They just should have, I feel like, probably should have either been doing more or less. But this trade itself is good for them.
Great. Another Toronto move. Another confusing buyer. Bobby McMann goes to, not Colorado, but Seattle. Seattle Kraken bought at the deadline. He plays wing as well, by the way. He's not just a center. For the conditional 27 second. That becomes later of 2 options, and 2026 fourth. Yeah, this is like even more confusing than the Laughton deal, because while Seattle has been in a playoff spot for the majority of this season, they're super extra going to do nothing. They don't have a player like Artemi Panarin. They don't even have a player like Anze Kopitar at this point. Why? How could you think that what Seattle needs is another middle sixer? What are we doing? This is so bad. This is a C because they didn't give a ton, and Bobby McMann's a pretty good player, but just for fit, this is an F, and for Seattle, F for their entire season. B+ for Toronto, though. They were maybe gonna sign this dude. There were some rumors of that floating around. Didn't like that for the state the Leafs were in. Gonna be interesting to see what Toronto does over the next year and a half. Welcome to St. Paul, Austin Matthews. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, the Kraken are the team that their entire roster is middle 6 guys, and like you said, they signed another one. I don't know, like, sure, I guess. I mean, it's not a bad trade, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to do anything. They're getting the playoffs. They might not even make the playoffs. Who knows? But assuming they do, they're going to lose in the first round. I'd put $10,000 on that. Like, this isn't the 2022 Kraken. Like, they're not doing anything this year. And the Leafs, they get another whatever trade. So, yeah, just another... Like, this is very fitting because these two teams are, like, extreme... Or the Kraken, at least, are extremely boring, and they make a boring trade. Very cool.
Yeah, they started this year, like, first in the division, second in the league through the first month. And they've been slowly falling ever since. They had a decent stretch, like, in December or something. But, yeah, they're now looking on the outside, looking in. Yeah, we're going to go through some extras here, finish off the video with some slightly less significant deals. We'll start with Warren Fogle. He was scratched by LA a lot this year. Again, what the fuck, LA? What are we doing? He was a 20-goal guy, and we're just scratching him left, right, and center. They still do get a decent haul for him. They swap thirds for him, is kind of what this looks like. I gave this a B plus for LA just because they did give a return on a guy they weren't using, and a C plus for Ottawa because they don't really need to buy a guy like this, but it's decent to take a risk on him, I guess. Looks like you gave LA a B. And
Same, pretty much same thing.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Nick Dowd. They gave Nick Dowd as Vegas' fourth line center now, and they gave up quite a big chunk of quantity to get him. Goalie prospect, third in 27 and a second in 29. This is an A from both of us for Washington, pretty much. They continue to sell like they did with Carlson. I think the steal came first, but whatever. And then this is kind of questionable for Vegas, in my opinion. Vegas, again, acquires a depth defenseman from Nashville for a depth prospect and a mid-round pick.
Whatever.
Michael Carrick, this is a guy that the Rangers needed to get off of, and they did. Buffalo gets him. He's a big center. For a third and sixth in 2026. I like getting off him. We both give the Rangers the higher grade. Buffalo bolsters up again, kind of for the playoffs. This is a decent deal for both teams, but the Rangers were the winners in our opinions. Corey Perry to LA for a second. Welcome back to the Stanley Cup Finals, Tampa Bay Lightning. The curse will continue. This is an A for LA for me. I think getting rid of a 40-year-old that wasn't doing anything and the most annoying fucking player in the league at that. Nice job. Tampa getting back Corey Perry, bolstering that team, making them tougher. He's already been in a fight for Tampa. We'll take it.
Well, we'll talk about that fight later.
Yeah, that's coming in a different video. You stay tuned. And then we've got Elmer Soderblom, giant forward, going to Pittsburgh where they love their giant forwards for a third. This is a nice risk by Pittsburgh. Decent sell by Detroit. They were a little overloaded on the forward core. B's all around. And then Nick Delorier, the only deal Carolina makes all deadline, very confusing, but they toughen up with Nick Delorier. Probably doesn't really crack the lineup most times, but whatever. I am going to give Carolina, I gave them Carolina a C+, and Philly a C. Philly wins this deal for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, Carolina inevitably gets to the East Conference Finals, and they brush them off to do a couple fights and then get suspended for the rest of the playoffs or something so they can maybe make the cup. But the Lightning have Corey Perry, so the Lightning are cup bound.
Yeah.
We know that.
Sorry, Carolina. But that's going to be it for our deadline deep dive. We are going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Very interesting deadline. Real quick, before we finish, give the Wild a grade for their entire deadline. Don't include Quinn Hughes, just the deadline.
Is this assuming that I've already watched the games they played since the deadline?
Yes.
I'm going to give it a B+ then.
A B+.
I like it. I think they could have made bigger moves, but I think if they didn't, they'd have like less depth. And we're talking about top line center and depth scoring. Those are the two biggest concerns. They fill one of them.
We'll take it.
I think top line center was a more pressing issue, but the market was not allowing for that to happen.
Too high a price to pay.
You would B+.
I'd rather not overpay.
What are you thinking?
I'm gonna go with B. I do have a lot of logistics questions with just the amount of guys we have, but I do like the guys. A second for McCarron at this point, knowing we didn't make any other trades where we could have used that second, that's fine. But yeah, just not getting that center, regardless, does still kind of sting for me. But good players, good situational awareness, a solid B for me. That's gonna be it for us for this video. Do check out our next episode. We've got that coming out very soon as well. We will see you guys next time. Peace.